soil and weather monitoring technology to help you farm better. That's what we're talking about in this episode of XtremeAg's Cutting the Curve.
It's XtremeAg's Cutting the Curve podcast, cutting your learning curve and improving your farming operation every week. This episode of the Cutting the Curve podcast is brought to you by BASF, creating innovation to help farmers do the biggest job on earth. And now, let's get ready to learn with your host, Damian Mason.
Hey there, welcome to another fantastic episode of XtremeAg's Cutting the Curve. I have with me today two guys that have some pretty cool technology. We talked about this at Matt Miles' field day, and we shot a really short little video, and I said, let's go more in depth on that. I had Jacob Appleberry. He is with Live Oak Agronomics. He's an agronomy guy. He's a farm guy. He's an Arkansas guy. He works alongside Matt Miles down there, and he's joined by Nick Emanuel, who is a founder of a company called CropMetrics. It's now part of CropX. CropX is who we're talking about, and essentially, it's like a big corkscrew. We also did this at Commodity Classic. We looked at it, so I've seen the thing twice. It's a big corkscrew thing. Nick corrected me before we hit record on this. He told me, well, technically, it's a soil moisture monitoring probe or something like that. And I said, it's a blue corkscrewy thing. It could be purple. I'm colorblind. Anyway, and you put this in your field, and then you've got this other thing that you put out there, and it's like a rain gauge on robotic steroids. And all of this ties to your phone. I'm holding my phone right here because the future of farming is going to be even more precision, even more technologically driven as it continues to be, and you're going to use your phone to monitor all this. So, Jacob, you and I talked about this. We'll get to the product expert here in a second. You sell these things as a dealer with Live Oak Agronomics, but you also use them. And that's what's cool. You actually have not only an experimental thing, you've got a bunch of these all around the farms that you do with Miles.
Yes, sir. We have 21 or 22 out this year. I actually pulled 3 this morning because those fields are going to be harvested today. So we had them out roughly 3 weeks after emergence, and ran them all the way up till day of harvest just to try to gather a full set of data to see what kind of root development and soil moisture we have throughout the season.
If you're listening to this on the audio, because so many people listen to Cutting the Curve, you're in a piece of equipment or you're driving down the road or whatever, if you want to watch it, you can go to our YouTube channel, you go to extremeag.farm, and you can watch this. What I want you to do is, if you want to know what this thing looks like, our producer Will is dropping in images right now as I'm talking of what these things look like. It's essentially two pieces of equipment plus the thing on your phone. So Nick, you can explain this. The corkscrew thingy, which is your technology, it's a soil monitoring probe. You put that out there, and I believe it's solar powered, or it might have a battery, but the point is it doesn't need to be plugged in, right? Okay, it's battery powered. And then that feeds information to your phone. And there's another thing that's more of a monitoring system. So tell me about the equipment. I think it's really three things.
Yeah, or even 2. I'll even cut it down to 2. So the first piece is a soil moisture probe, what you just said. Very simple to use, all in one device. And like we talked, back there at the Commodity Classic, you go back to the old days of soil moisture monitoring, and they used to be these big clunky devices that were hard to install and made it technically challenging to go out there and achieve the ultimate goal, which is irrigation scheduling or monitoring, help you make that decision on when to water, when not to water. So this is an all-in-one device, which you call the corkscrew, which has the soil moisture sensors built into it, with a telemetry device right on the top head that can collect all the data throughout the day and then send that back up to the cloud or that cell phone app that you said, and provide those growers real-time information daily, even throughout the day if needed, to help them make more informed decisions, typically based around irrigation scheduling. And then the second component that you mentioned is just a weather station. So it's an all-in-one weather station that obviously we're going to be collecting rain, has a rain gauge on it, but then adds your other typical weather monitoring devices such as temperature and humidity and wind speed and direction. And when you bring all of that together and brings it all into that app all seamlessly, it helps you make more informed decisions, again, on a daily basis to help improve productivity and make your life easier.
If I don't irrigate, which in my part of the world, there's probably 1% of the acres around here in Indiana that are irrigated. Almost none of Indiana is irrigated. Do I need this device, Jacob Appleberry? Do I need this? Matt Miles doesn't have 1 acre that's not irrigated, I think. Do I need this?
He's got a few more this year that are not irrigated. The thing I would say, as much as anything, is if you're able to monitor your soil moisture in a non-irrigated situation, you can at least start seeing some tendencies, and you may not make a decision this year, but after you see the data over a couple of years, if you start seeing at critical growth stages that you don't have a certain amount of soil moisture, it may be a way to help manage, financial inputs. If you don't have if the soil's not having moisture set that you need, and you can't make yield after that because you're at, ear set, or you're at R4 or R5, whenever you're filling those pods and finalizing your pods, you may back off the last of the season. You may not put out a pre-tassel application because you're not going to get a return on investment there. Now, I have not dealt with a non-irrigated situation, so there may be a lot of things I'm not thinking of, but that'd be the 2 things I would think of looking at it outside in.
So from the standpoint, Nick, most of this is a newer company, newer technology. It works. We've already seen it. Mr. Jacobs showed us that they're using it, and it's working in Arkansas. In terms of the technology's best application, is it best utilized in an irrigated environment?
That is the majority of the business today. But yes, there's other tool sets and software features around that can be benefit to the dryland acres. And even when we talked about kind of the irrigation technology, Jacob was just telling me a great use case that I'll hit you, Jacob, right here that you forgot to mention right there, but it was your pre-season planning, where you said you guys found a lot of value of installing those moisture probes out ahead of the season to really tell you, okay, when is the optimal time to plant, which field to plant, and then even potentially make your fertility decisions on how much you're going to push that crop moving into the start of the season. And so we are seeing a gradual increase in interest in those dryland acres for certain scenarios like that also.
Well, here's the thing. It's mobile. This is not, we're not hardwiring this into the grid. It's a 3-foot long probe that I'm guessing that if it's not giving me any return over here, I can just move it or give it back or whatever, right, Jacob? I don't know.
Whenever you uninstall it and you go and reinstall it somewhere else, it takes about 48 hours for it to acclimate to that area. There's no reason you can't move it around. Your data set isn't complete throughout the season if you did that versus having multiples. May sound like a sales pitch, but it's not the sales pitch idea. It's more of, what are you looking for agronomic data to make a complete decision, or to look back at your data at the end of the season and figure out how to do better next year.
When I look at doing this, and we did this in Arkansas, there's 2 different components. There's the weather station thing,
right?
And the probes. I'm putting those. You've got 22 of them, and that's monitoring how many acres?
I've got my stuff pulled up, and we've got 18,000 acres in our program right now. I've got stuff for Matt. I've got a guy that has 2 in Mississippi, 1 in Louisiana. I'm helping Johnny with his a little bit in Tennessee, and I'm helping Danielle and Kevin out in North Carolina.
Okay. And you're doing that because then the question is going to be, well, how dense do I need to put these probes? Do I need one every 100 acres? Do I need one every? Because there's going to be a lot of variation from one part of a field or a township or whatever to the next.
What I've kind of said for our area, now obviously this changes, to go in different areas, is one per farm per crop. And if you have a bunch of different soil types, maybe you need to have one in every soil type. So if you had a place that had, two different crops on it, three different soil types, you might have 4 to 6 probes on that farm if it's a couple thousand acre farm. So it's just a matter of how dense you want to be. Where we have taken care of it is we have it in the 4 separate farms that Matt and Lane have, and then we covered both or all 3 crops. Actually, 4 crops. We have one in rice, learning how to use it in rice, and then looking at the predominant soil type or predominant 2 to 3 soil types on that farm. So I can't say you need one every 200 acres or one every 100 acres. Nick may have better data on that than we do, this being year 1 for us. But that's kind of how we approach it, is let's try to cover the predominant soil type or predominant 2 or 3 soil types and the crops on that farm.
And I was just going to add on to that. I mean, we also have to take in perspective here that, every area of the country has different management or irrigation practices. Whether you're here in Nebraska, like myself, running center pivots predominantly, down south where it might be predominantly gravity flow, or then you get all the way into drip irrigation. What we commonly say or typically say is, one per irrigation system. So if that's a center pivot, need 1 probe per that center pivot. If it's a drip field, 1 per your main drip zone. Now, to Jacob's point, even under a center pivot, for example, we may have 2 or 3 different soil types. Mm-hmm. Ideally, yes, we would love to put a sensor in every one of those soil zones and then start to do some variable rate irrigation with that center pivot, which we do have the capability to do. The economics on that is a little bit tough to manage that sometimes, unless it's extremely variable. But so in that case, when we're still doing 1 moisture probe per center pivot, what he said, we're going to go with that predominant, or what I often say, the majority soil type, and we're going to water for that majority soil type, and that's how we're going to maximize profitability on that total field.
Mm-hmm. So, without getting too techie, how's this work? I stick this in the ground. After 48 hours to acclimate, it has the information, and it kicks it to my app. I install an app on my phone, and it's got a battery. That's it?
Pretty much. It's about a 5 to 10 minute install. The battery, you charge it up in your office. The battery has a year-long life cycle, and you just start looking at the stuff, start looking at the data, and start trying to figure out, where you need to be and where your fill points and refill points are based off what the software tells you, or if you need to make some adjustments yourself to fit the situation, whether you're looking at different soil zones on your probe based off where your majority root zone is.
Got it. Nick, what do you tell people when they're scared of it seems like it's pretty simple.
Well, and to add on to that, we're talking a lot about the hardware right now. I think what Jacob just said there at the end on, being able to adjust and customize on the software is the key. The software is really, the bread and butter behind it. The hardware is a tool that you can physically see, but a lot of times the grower themselves never see that actual hardware because the dealer or the consultant is installing and removing it for them. But where all your money is made is in the power of that software. Just like any really, all the technology today, AI and software is driving everything. And it's no different here. The CropX software is what makes it extremely easy to use. We use all our AI and machine learning to take all that data and information from all the different components, throw it in a basket, spit out an answer that precisely tells you when to irrigate and when not to.
Yeah. And so, like I said, to the non-irrigated person, it's more going to be monitoring the conditions in that field. If I'm thinking about a treatment, if I'm thinking about, or somebody like you, a consulting agronomy type person could say, hey, Damian, this is what your data is telling you to do. How do I go about making this make sense financially? So how much, I know you sell these, Jacob, so how much you sell them for? And then when someone asks you point blank, I need to know what my ROI is. When do I get my money back? What do you tell them?
Locally, we sell them for $1,000 a year for a 3-year deal. That's
I'm committing to $1,000 a year for 3 years.
correct.
Okay.
That's us installing them, uninstalling them, putting them up for the winter, helping you set up, helping you monitor them.
Yep.
If you have questions, either getting you to the right person to fix it if we can't fix it ourselves, or fixing it ourselves. If there's a warranty issue, we take care of that.
I think I could see this. I'm guessing, Nick, a lot of this is part of a consulting agronomist or a hired professional agronomist package. Like,
Yes.
part of the deal is I give you advice. I do scouting. I help you with experimenting with new products if you're going to do that. And then also we use this as a tool in our toolbox. It's just like
Right.
soil. It's like a taking soil samples or anything else.
Right. And if you go and incorporate that with a weather station to where you have a more complete picture of what's going on with hyper-local data, that just makes it that much better for you whenever you're doing experiments and saying, well, why did this work? Well, my nighttime temperatures are too high or whatever. I mean, there's a whole list of reasons why things can go right or wrong.
Yeah, and I like the weather station. I thought it was a cool little device. So how many of those do you recommend? So if you got a certain number of the probes, how many of those weather stations do I need? Nick, how many do you have spread around your Nebraska operation?
That all comes down to how dense you like to receive your weather data. We have some guys putting one in every field because they want to track that rainfall in every field.
Yep.
And and the more we see how varied that rainfall could be, we've got farms kind of all around me, and we'll have a half to an inch difference from a mile or two apart. That knowing that with accurate data collection through these weather stations makes it beneficial.
Yeah, and then the soil temperature that matters at planting for germination when it's time to go. After that, it's kind of a moot point. So really, it's about the moisture. Does temperature matter after emergence?
To your point, that's probably the biggest benefit. What we use it for is, you can start to also understand crop health or crop stress when you're able to integrate that soil temperature in combination with how that soil moisture is being used on a daily activity. And I can see Jacob shaking his head, but
so that matters to you even past emergence. I mean, I can see it mattering in Southeast Arkansas in February when Matt's getting itchy to go out and do some planting, but by July, like we're recording this in July, it's hot. So what?
If nothing else, you're looking at and seeing if you have a crop canopy, not necessarily a crop canopy issue, but if you have good crop canopy and keeping the soil cool, then that's keeping the plant happy and healthy and things like that. Nick's right about being able to monitor plant health with it in a way. That's what I was thinking and just couldn't figure out how to explain it before Nick started explaining it very well.
So if I wanted to say, temperature isn't a major driver, but it's another monitoring point we have to kind of backtrack and look at if there is an issue. But with that crop health, the big thing that I see that I've personally found a lot of value on my own farm is watching the rooting activity. So it's more than just a full soil moisture profile, how much moisture is in that soil profile that's driving our irrigation decisions. But when we're able to watch the rooting activity from different depths, so that the core sensor that you're talking about, the Vertex, has 3 sensors, spaced throughout that 2.5 foot profile, you can see how that rooting activity is and see how active that root is, or that rooting development. And often that'll correlate directly with plant health. I mean, I've seen it so often that the overall plant health and that crop health is a direct indication of, or I should say the rooting activity is a direct indicator of our overall plant health. and it helps you understand better, one, between management practices, what's working, what's not working, products and product placement, and all the way to your fertility program. I've learned a lot through the fertility and other products that I've tested and tried. One of your previous podcasts here, you've had a few of them the last few weeks on fertility management and increasing, making more efficient with the fertility we're using. And you can really understand all of that through these soil moisture probes by that rooting activity and the level of the in-depth information that you're seeing there.
I appreciate you making the economic as well as the fertility thing. I'm not popular sometimes. Jacob, you might be there with me. I'm not popular sometimes. Well, you're not the real farmer. You're not an agronomist. I said, no, but I am a person that really pays attention to the marketplace. We're going to have regulations on how much fertility, because, period, when I was in western Nebraska, Nick State, with our guy Temple Rhodes and our friend from Agrotech USA on a panel, and they were talking about bringing a heavy hammer of regulation because nitrates in the water, in the wells, were like 3 and 5 times what they deemed to be safe. If something like this technology can allow us to cut applied fertility, which any person that's being honest, we have generally overapplied for what we actually got the benefit of, I guess is the right word.
Yes.
This technology can allow us to apply less because we're realizing is it because of timing? Whatever. What's the reason? But am I right about this, Jacob? This will allow a reduction in applied fertility because we're doing it with better information. That's what I would think.
You have a more complete picture of information, and whenever you look at the software, there are what they call insights that gives you leaching advice. If there's plant disease opportunities based on, again, local weather data to be able to better manage whether you've had an event that would lose nitrogen, whichever 3 ways you want to talk about, mostly in this case, leaching. Or if you have a plant disease opportunity based off of temperature and humidity that you're either getting from weather data from a local weather station, or if you're getting weather data based off of NOAA or something like that, whenever it starts showing where the probe is at and basis of weather information off of that probe location.
Do you
and
agree?
Damian,
Do you agree that we've overapplied fertility and we're going to have a heavy hand of regulation coming our way? When the people in Iowa, as agricultural of a state as there is, are screaming about nitrates in the Raccoon River run through Des Moines, and they say 87% of it is derived from agriculture. This ain't Massachusetts. This is ag country. I think there's going to be some. I think technology like this is where we have to get better.
Well,
Yes.
I'll even add on to that, Damian. I mean, I think you're exactly right on the fertility, but water is in the exact same position. We've typically overused water, thinking it's infinite resource, which it's not. It's our probably number one most valuable resource that we have available. And just the common practice has always been water more than to keep that crop happy, because the risk of running our crop dry is more than just overwatering typically. And so that's typically where we see our biggest benefit in these heavy irrigated regions, is being able to cut back our irrigation. We'll save trips, so we're saving money that way. But when you do all of that, you're making that crop more efficient. You're not pushing that fertility through the root zone. You're not leaching nitrogen. You're improving the whole system capability, but it all starts with water first and foremost.
I would say that, and I've been on the record when I do speaking engagements in places like Nebraska that rely on a lot of irrigation. There's more center pivots in Nebraska than about any other state, aren't there? But that when we start viewing water as a crop input, just like nitrogen or fungicide or anything else, when we start viewing it like that, we'll have finally turned the corner, because generally we've treated it like it was free, as you say. And so anyway, on this stuff, speaking of the water, what if I happen to be listening to this and I'm a specialty crop person? Can I justify this more or less? We're talking about broad acre stuff. Does a pecan grove need this? Does a blueberry field need this? I don't know. What do you think, Jacob? You're nearer to maybe that kind of stuff. I'm in corn and soybean country in northern Indiana. You said you're experimenting with rice. What difference does it make with the crop that you could justify the use or not use of this technology?
In a pecan grove, I see how it could be used. Obviously, there's no way that a 26-inch probe is going to take care of a tree that's got 20-foot deep root system. But being able to see what's going on there might not be disadvantageous. Blueberries, I can see where it'd be even more useful just to try to manage it, and maybe using it to manage not manage stress, manage stress, but also to manage disease pressure, being able to monitor and manage disease pressure better. Obviously, those particular plants maybe not are as resilient to disease as the crops that I'm used to dealing with.
Nick, when you invented this technology, I guess the question is always, who do it's like when I wrote a book, who is this for? And then who's it not for? When you invent this technology, who do you think it's for and who do you think it's not for? Or has there been a surprise? Like, holy crap, I didn't think about this.
Well, coming from the Midwest here, the target was always our heavily irrigated regions within the U.S. And, my experience was always the standard commodity row crops. So that's what we started targeting first and foremost. But, to your point there, those specialty crops, just as Jacob said, are often more sensitive to water than anything. And it doesn't take a whole lot of overwatering to push them over the edge where that crop health all starts to play in a factor, crop health and reproduction. So obviously, if we're limiting our reproduction, if we're overwatering a little bit, that's going to invite disease and disease pressure greater. All of that pays off with precisely monitoring your irrigation scheduling and improving on it. And obviously, with those specialty crops, the ROI percentage just grows wider because they're not farming these cheap commodity crops, but they're a lot more money.
They generally have much higher revenue, not necessarily margins, but the much higher revenue per acre, and so you get a bigger bang for your buck on a per acre basis with better technology.
Correct. Just like everything, it's precision.
To go back to the irrigation and water, seeing water as not as just a free resource, but as an input. When you look at local budgets, irrigation here is somewhere between 35 and 45% of your budget, of your total budget. When you turn that around, and Matt and Lay picked up 2 farms this year, one set of wells are 1,500, 1,800, 2,000 gallon a minute wells. Great wells, water great, everything went well this year in irrigation. Then you turn around and look at this other farm, and the wells were significantly lower. So the management practices of using the probes to be able to say, I've got to start watering this low output well earlier to get across a lot easier versus these higher output wells. I have a little bit more time there. I can not let the crop stress, but I can use a little bit more soil moisture up before I have to worry about refilling. And to me, that makes the budget work out a little bit better, so you don't, again, underwater or overwater, but you are there more timely and use that resource that is costing a good bit of our budget nowadays better. That makes sense, or is that?
No, I got it. No, I got it. And then the other one, I guess, speaking of the water, that I hadn't even considered, in an irrigated situation, is more common per Nick that you are overwatering versus underwatering. You've got the stuff, and so you just figure, what the heck, I err on that. And we know, and I'm not the one, you guys are both more agronomically knowledgeable than me, but they taught me in FFA soil judging, you're supposed to have 50% particle, 25% air, and 25% water for maximizing your roots, etc. Well, if it's all water and particle and there's no air, that's just as bad as it being dry. And like you said, it's not only bad for the plant health, it's bad for disease.
Yes.
Absolutely. And there's, typically when we're seeing these big savings, is the start of the irrigation season earlier in the year, and then finishing the irrigation season late in the year. That's usually on a new grower when we typically save 1 to 2 passes on each one of those ends. Because when we get in the heat of it, at tassel and moving into reproduction, we can water all day and that crop's really going to suck it right out, utilize it throughout the year. But when it's using very little at the beginning of the year, and that's the biggest challenge is, okay, when do I start irrigating? Mm-hmm. How much is actually in the profile this year? Because obviously year to year varies. We'll see the biggest advantage there early in the year, knowing when to start. Well, then we can just keep pushing the crop during those heavy water usage reproductive stages. But then as we start to finish, we don't want to quit too early, because we want to make sure that we get all the grain fill and the grain weight we can to finish that crop properly. But at the same time, we don't want to be overwatering and adding water when the crop is already done using it. Yep. And then, because all that does is create compaction issues and everything else when the harvest equipment starts to roll in. So there's multiple advantages from that front end and the back end that we typically see our greatest savings.
Yeah, and even during when you're in heavy water use, being able to see that coming maybe a little bit earlier than you would without a probe is very useful as well. Or being able to say, you know what, I've got enough to last because there's a very good rain chance coming. Maybe I can wait 48 hours and save this irrigation instead of going, you know what, I'm unsure. Yeah, I'm going to water and then get a rain and have an over irrigation or an overwatering problem like you were talking about. It lets you have a little bit more freedom of decision of, yes, I'm good, or no, I'm not good. One customer asked me right around, he said he was a week from black layer. He said, do you think I need to water again? And after a decent conversation, we decided not to water, and it ended up seems like it's going to work out for him. He feels good about skipping that watering. Yeah, because he had enough soil moisture to make it to black layer, and he felt comfortable after that.
And one thing we see too, Jacob, that always surprised me, after 15 years of using this myself on my own farm is, the different hybrid and variety differences.
Oh, yeah.
We start to see where fields side by side or across the road from one another, one hybrid may be using more and the other one's really coasting. Yeah, it changes the irrigation practice and the management style to really maximize that specific crop or variety or hybrid.
Exactly.
Here I am, been saying forever there's no difference from one seed to the next, and you just told me that there might be a difference on water utilization. So I stand correct. Like the man that returned from the chiropractor, I stand corrected. All right, so I think that we got a lot of technology in this business, and some of you are like, yeah, it's too much, or it's I don't see how this is really going to make much of a difference. This is affordable, and I can see where you can, especially under irrigation, or to the point about maybe specialty crops, where this thing is very utilizable. Like the utility factor on this is, I can see it being pretty significant. What are your people saying? What are your people saying, Jacob? You get the last word. What are your people saying? You're setting them up and saying, hey, this is a new thing. What do you think?
Being first year, they're a little bit apprehensive, but they know that with this technology, they're going to get a pretty decent return on investment year one. I mean, like we were talking about earlier with budgeting, you save one watering, or you save two waterings, you save one up front, save one at the end. You paid for it just like that, easily. What we're looking at now is, can we go out in the fall after you get all your fall fertility down, whatever tillage you're going to do, get your crop or get your ground ready for next year, and go and install these then, and having a data set to where you can look at how early can I start planting in 26? How much can I get ahead of heat? How much can I get ahead of disease, insects, other stressors that take away from yield? And, planting date, unless you have a major weather event like we did in April this year, planting date is free. That's an opportunity for free bushels right there. So why not take advantage of it there by using something like this that gives you a definite day over day, this is what my soil temperature is, this is what my soil moisture is, here's some other things that are going on in the ground, to be able to say, yes, this is a good idea to plant 2 weeks ahead of what you really usually plant at, maybe 3 weeks, and gain that opportunity.
Yeah, I like it. All right, Nick. I told him he was going to get the last word, but you know what? You came all the way in from Nebraska. I mean, what the hell? Maybe you need to tell me what I need to know.
Well, I'll talk from the grower standpoint. As we've all been talking, nobody wants to spend an extra dollar at this time in our current commodity prices and profit margins. We all know it's tight, so we don't want to spend an extra dollar. But where, especially in irrigated country, everything starts with water. Water is the driver, not only from an irrigation standpoint, but from everything else we talked about, fertility management. The more efficient we are with our water, the more it improves and makes us a more efficient crop, which ultimately improves our ROI and our profitability. So just as Jacob said, this is a technology that has instant ROI. You put it in when you save 2 or 3 irrigations throughout the year, that's easily paying for itself plus some. And then you get the added advantage of potential yield improvement or productivity from all the efficiencies we're gaining as water being a driver, to improve everything else.
The product is CropX. The company's called CropX. And then you can go to their website. I just pulled it up on my phone. Where do they go, Jacob? They go to
CropXweb.com.
CropX.com. I just pulled up CropX.com. It's the complete digital agronomy platform, precision hardware and software designed for a new age of farming. Anyway, check it out. I was joined by Nick Emanuel, Nebraska farmer and originator of this technology. And he doesn't like when I call it Nebraska. Anyway, it's all right. It's a good place. Good place.
The one thing I do like is I did hear you say, I made you stand corrected today.
Yeah, there you
We're
go.
going to mark that one in the books.
That's right.
It's always a good thing.
And I'm willing to willing to let people correct me. And Jacob Appleberry with Live Oak Agronomics. That's a business he's in conjunction with down there, Matt Miles in the Delta region of Arkansas. Till next time, thanks for being here. If you want to learn more, go check out CropX. And also, when you're scouting around the web, go and check out all the cool programming we're doing. I've been doing this now for 4 years. Hundreds of episodes of Cutting the Curve, thousands of videos that these guys shoot in the field, stuff that we do at the field days, like one with Jacob, to talk about the technology or new innovations these guys are experimenting with at XtremeAg. And then remember our YouTube channel. Go and subscribe to that. Doesn't cost nothing. Just go on YouTube, type in XtremeAg. And while you're there, check out our new show, The Granary. It's me and the guys from XtremeAg in my on-farm tavern discussing everything from the personal to the professional about the industry that we all work in. It's a great time. Pull up a chair and join us at The Granary. Till next time, thanks for being here. I'm Damian Mason.
That's a wrap for this episode of Cutting the Curve. Make sure to check out XtremeAg.farm for more great content to help you squeeze more profit out of your farming operation. This episode of the Cutting the Curve podcast is brought to you by BASF, creating innovation to help farmers do the biggest job on earth.